Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep, and in this series we are going to discuss some previous year questions from geography optional. Now, in this series we are trying to build an approach as to how we shall be writing geography optional answers, and with the help of previous year questions we will develop that particular approach. At the same time, I will also tell you some of the nuances in answer writing when it comes to optional. At the same time, we will cover some key concepts as well. So with this answer writing, we are not just trying to attempt a question, but we will also try to understand how to approach a particular topic and what other dynamism a particular topic may come with. Now, coming back to question, here I have a question from 2023 geography optional paper. Define peneplains. Describe the landscape features associated with the peneplains under different geomorphic cycles. Now, before I dissect this particular question, let us understand from which topic of the syllabus this question has been asked. Now, if I dive into syllabus, I have something called as concepts of geomorphic cycle and landscape development. Fine. And in this particular topic, we are supposed to learn regarding various geomorphic cycle. So you must have come across Davis's cycle, Fink's cycle, right? At the same time, there are different cycles depending upon the climatic conditions under which this cycle is taking place. So there are some arid cycles, subhumid region cycle, or glacial and periglacial cycles of erosion, so on and so forth. So there are more than 10 or 15 cycles we come across in the syllabus. But typically when it comes to this particular topic, you are supposed to be thorough with 4 or 5 particular cycles, in which Davis is very important, Fink is equally important, and then there is Crickmay and JT Hack or Morisawa, which are forming key part of the syllabus. Fine. So I have just given you a brief introduction with what this syllabus topic is. Then there is something called as erosional surfaces. So what happens is every geomorphic cycle end with a final product that is nothing but a erosion surface, right? Now there are various types of erosional surfaces which are formed under different geomorphic cycle or different climatic conditions. So arid climatic condition will result into different type of erosional surface, or glaciated condition will result into different type of erosional surface. To give you an example, if you just scroll through past 2-3 years papers, you will find one question on altiplanes or altiplanation. Altiplanation nothing but an erosional surface which is formed under the glaciated cycle of erosion. So that is how you are supposed to approach this particular topic. Now when I come back to question, when it comes to peneplains, peneplain is what? Peneplain is nothing but one of the erosional surface, and we have to discuss the landscape features. Now just understand what this question is asking. It is first asking you to define peneplain. So we have to bring out the ultimate meaning of what these peneplains exactly are under different erosional cycles or different geomorphic cycles. And after that, the other part of the question is regarding the landscape feature. If you look at any geomorphic cycle, when that geomorphic cycle it reaches into old stage, and in the old stage the final product is peneplain or an erosional surface, which may come with different names under different geomorphic cycle. And along with that erosional surface, we also have some key landform formation. They are not as huge landforms, but they are just minuscule remnants which are reflecting the conditions of the past. And that is why these landscape features are very important when it comes to the final stage of the erosional cycle or geomorphic cycle, right? So that is something you are supposed to bring in here. So first define what peneplains are, and then second part of the question is you have to identify landscape features associated with peneplains. Now when I say landscape features associated with peneplains, I am simply suggesting that, or this particular question is simply asking that what landscape feature we have in the final stage of geomorphic cycle. Okay, there are different geomorphic cycles, and in all different geomorphic cycle we have different type of erosional surface. At the same time, we have different type of landscape which has formed in that particular cycle, right? So we have to tell different geomorphic cycle and the landscape and peneplain. Fine. So that is the scope of this particular question. Now once we have identified the scope of the particular question, rest of the part is nothing but just collecting all the information which is spread over all the syllabus, or if you are following a particular textbook, so you are not certainly going to get answer for this particular question within the single chapter itself. So there may be a chapter on erosional surface. If you read textbooks such as Geomorphology by Savindra Singh, or if you read Geomorphology by Dayal, W.D. Thornbury is there, which is a wonderful textbook to read regarding geomorphology or to understand geomorphology. In all of these particular topics, what we find that there is a chapter on erosional surfaces, and in that erosional surface chapter, what are the different types of erosional surfaces which are formed under different geomorphic cycles, that has been given, right? But when it comes to the landscape development in that part, which is associated with that peneplain or the erosional surface, that is something you have to collect in the chapter of geomorphic cycle. So that is what the challenge here is, that information is not collected at a place, it is spread over different parts of the syllabus, right? So that is why answering this particular question will be a challenge if you are not collated information together. Otherwise it is a straightforward question. Fine. Now when it comes to introduction, again, if you are introducing in optional, by and large your introduction should be a definition based introduction. Again, thumb rule, do not write something which is obvious, right? So I am going for a definition based approach. Other approach which can be presented here, that could be regarding the historical evolution. Fine. You can also talk about the evolution which has taken place in particular topic, be it physical geography or even in the case of human geography. You can bring out the historical evolution. Now in this particular approach, be it definition based approach or be historical evolution based approach, there are a couple of things which will award you a few marks more, 2 marks more you will be awarded if you follow some simple things. One, make sure that you are naming a geographer in the introduction itself. If it is possible for you to name a geographer in the introduction, please bring that name in here. If there is some geographical work which is done by a particular geographer or which is relevant to the question, please bring in here and write it then and there itself, right? So the moment you present something historical which is related to the theory or how that theory has evolved, and you bring in geographers and their works, it simply reflects your command on that particular topic or that particular subject, which is a wonderful academic sign, because when it comes to optional subject is not about general understanding, right? Optional subject is demanding you having a deeper academic excellence in a particular subject, and when you reflect a deeper academic excellence, when you bring in geographers or their works or historical evolution of a particular theory of a particular issue, that will reflect your deeper understanding or deeper academic excellence, right? So that is something you need to follow when it comes to optional. Now what or how I am going to approach in this particular part, understand. So I am going forward to the straight definition which was given by Davis. So I am saying the term peneplain was introduced by W.M. Davis in 1889. Again, if it is possible for you to mention the year of something which has happened or the work in which year it was presented, it will be again add to your marks, right? So the term was coined by Davis in 1889 to describe the low and gently undulating plain which the process of subaerial erosion. Fine. So what we have, a peneplain which is formed during subaerial erosional process. What is the character of this particular peneplain? It is low and gently undulating plain. Fine. Now when it is developing in the penultimate stage. That is what we are talking about, the final stage, right? The final stage of geomorphic cycle is the stage where we will have erosional surfaces and associated landform. So we simply have to write in next part regarding the landforms or landscape which appears in the last stage of geomorphic cycle, right? So that is simple. Now once I have introduced with the definition, I will further explain what peneplains are, right? Now in body part, I have again made two parts. One, I will be dedicating towards peneplains again, right? And in next part, I would be talking about various landscape features which we find in a particular geomorphic cycle or the last stage of geomorphic cycle. Now, when it comes to part 1, in part 1, I am going to explain peneplains. Now, what is peneplane? Pene means almost, plane is flat surface. Why we are calling it as a peneplane? We are calling a particular erosional surface as a peneplane because it is almost plane, but it is not a completely flat surface as such as we have in depositional surfaces. Okay? If you take example of a depositional plane, a plane which is formed by deposition of alluvial or any other sediment, it will be a very flat plane. When it comes to an erosional surface, it's a plane, right? It's a final product. Height is as good as base level, because when we have a cycle of erosion, during the geomorphic cycle of erosion, we will start from a certain height and erosion will reduce any landform to the height of base level. So that is something which is basic. So this plane is forming at a base level. But what is the detail about this particular plane? This is not a flat plane, right? It will have some undulations, right? So I will have this particular plane which is up and down. If you go to peninsular region of India, in many peninsular region of India, you will find these erosional planes or these erosional surfaces. And most of the peninsular part of India is undulating. It's not flat plane. Okay, so that is the character of an erosional surface. Okay, now this particular erosional surface is formed in the penultimate erosion. And at the same time, I will also write, you see, my plane is not completely flat. The monotony of this particular plane, just understand this particular terminology, that monotony of the erosional surfaces is often broken by certain landscape which are developed in the last stage of erosion. Fine. So that is something again you have to explain. Clear? So this is my part 1 where I have properly defined what these peneplains or what these erosional surfaces are. Now in next cycle, what I am going to do, I will talk about various landscape which are associated with the peneplains. Now this is an easy but important part in whole of the syllabus, because time and again when you talk about geomorphic cycle, these landscape which are formed in the every stage is crucial, and typically the last stage is most crucial. Now when it comes to peneplane, various types of peneplane. Now just understand one more thing. If I say peneplane, there are two meanings. Either I am talking about erosional surfaces, fine, because here it is saying peneplains. So there can be an erosional surface from the Davis's cycle of erosion. The end product of Davis's cycle of erosion is peneplane, fine. But in general also peneplains can refer to various other erosional surfaces, right? As question is saying, what are the various landscape features formed with peneplains under different geomorphic cycles? Okay. So there are multiple geomorphic cycle given by, let us say, Davis. There is cycle of Pink, so on and so forth. And in different geomorphic cycle, we have a different peneplane. So when we use word peneplane, there can be two meaning. Now here I am saying peneplane. Peneplane is what? It is an erosional surface from Davis's cycle of erosion. Clear? It is an undulating plane which is extremely low in relief. At the same time, if you look at the nature or the landscape in this penultimate cycle, it is a convexo-concave surface, right? And with the convexo-concave surface, we also have formation of some low lying hillocks called as monadnocks. Fine. So let us see the diagram. What we have to show here. Look at this particular diagram. Now when you are writing for this particular question, it is at all not necessary that you are making such a detailed diagram. It will be fine even if you are just drawing ki see this is how with time a high relief is getting converted into a low relief, and final product here is penny plane, and then there are some low lying hillocks which are breaking the monotony of this low lying plane, which will be called as a monadnock. Clear? So these are the landscapes or the landforms which are formed in the penultimate cycle of Davis's penultimate stage of Davis's cycle of erosion. Fine. So that is my first geomorphic cycle. Next, I have end rump, right? If we talk about the Penck's cycle of erosion, okay, in Penck's cycle of erosion, what I have the final product or the final erosional surface, which is called as an end rump. Fine. An end rump is a low angle landscape or land slope with a concave slope. Now just understand, we are explaining the nature of landscape here, right? So when we are explaining the nature of landscape, it is very important to describe what kind of slope we have in the final stage of erosion. So what I have a concave slope. Fine. At the same time, as we had monadnocks there, instead of monadnocks, I have a formation of Inselberg in Penck's cycle of erosion, and whatever slope we see forming, it is called as Haldenhang, or alternately it can be termed as a wash slope. So this is the landscape which is formed in the Penck's cycle of erosion. Now let's look at the diagram of Penck's cycle of erosion. Now in Penck's cycle of erosion, again I have shown you what is Haldenhang. This is the penultimate stage, and again the final product, final erosional surface is my end rump, and the monotony of end rump is broken by what? Again low lying hillocks. Now the slope of these hillocks, if you compare with that of monadnocks, now monadnocks are very gently sloping. It may happen that Inselbergs have a thoda sa sharp slope. Fine, but you have to mention that during the formation of end rump or along with the end rump as an erosional surface, we also have a landscape which is convex concave in shape. There is wash slope and Haldenhang formation, and finally we also have Inselbergs which are breaking the monotony of end rump as a erosional plane. Fine. So that is my second cycle of erosion, and in another cycle, here I am talking about King's cycle of erosion. In King's cycle of erosion, King talk about an erosional surface called as pedyplane. Pedyplane is again a low angled plane, right? We also find that there are some antique pedyplanes. The pedyplanes which have formed long ago, and these antique pedyplanes, these are the original pedyplanes or original pediments which have developed during each cycle of erosion and have been preserved, and they can be found existing on all of the summits. So that is the landscape which we find forming along with the pedyplanes. Clear? So we have seen three cases: penny plane, end rump and pedyplane. So that is how you are supposed to approach this particular question. You are supposed to draw diagrams, whatever diagrams which are available, and finally we have to arrive at a conclusion. And in conclusion, I have given some generic type of conclusion, because sometimes in geography you will not have something very great to conclude with, and that is why I am going for a typical generic conclusion in which I am talking about different concepts of geomorphic cycles are applicable in different climatic conditions with different end products. Fine. So that was all about this particular question. Now see you again in next question. Good day.